Hey girls, great job on your projects. We are going to return to our textbook to continue learning about the supply and demand. We're going to be looking at some new topics, some old ones, but what we're mostly going to do today is just kind of do a review on supply and demand since it has been a while given our project. Um, so we're going to revisit the PowerPoint that we had looked at before. So hang tight. We're going to kind of just go through it, and I'm going to show you a number of different just like resources so that we can jump back into this thing. Please make sure that you have watched the video I posted before you open this. It will kind of give you a refresher and help you as we review. So we're going to have to understand the law of supply and describe the elasticity of supply and explain how it's measured. If we remember with demand, when we looked at that demand in chapter 4, I believe it was, okay, we looked at the demand curve, elasticity of demand, and changes in demand. Okay, and so that was in chapter 4. When we talk about elasticity of demand, right, we're talking about how responsive the quantity demanded is to a price change. Okay, it's the percent of change in the quantity demanded divided by the percent change in price, right? Okay, so if we remember this, we remember we calculated it. Basically, um, you know, when the price of an item drops, for example, if pizza is made more affordable, if pizza was originally 15 bucks and the price drops down to 10 bucks a pie, you're going to see more people ordering pizza. Why is that? That's because more people can afford it. So more people will be able to purchase it if they want it. Okay? Right. When we look at demand, we should remember that demand is the relationship that shows the quantity of a good that consumers are willing and able to buy for a period at various prices, right? So demand, to put this in simpler terms, with demand, how many pizzas are consumers like you and I willing to buy at certain periods of time with prices? Let's say I just hit the lottery, right? I'm going to be much more willing to buy pizza. I'm going to demand it more because I can afford it more. What if I just took a pay cut, or what if I just got fired from my job, right? That means that my personal individual demand for pizza is going to go way down low because I can't afford to have pizza whenever I want it. As an economy as a whole, right? Maybe right now, especially in quarantine, the demand for, trying to think of something social, concerts, right? Maybe we're going to see some artists start to kind of draw back because they aren't, people aren't going to concerts, people aren't going to venues. Maybe we'll see, Citizens Bank Park start to hurt a little bit because, that's where the Phillies play baseball. Typically at this point in the year, Citizens Bank Park and all of their shops within, whether it's a clothing shop, whether it's, Rita's inside there, whatever it is, they're going to see a drawback because people are not going there. There's no demand right now to buy a baseball ticket to a baseball game, which means there's no demand to buy an ice cream cone in the stadium, right? So that's pretty much what we're seeing with demand. People are not willing or able to buy baseball tickets at this time. So that's pretty much the relationship. So what does that mean? There aren't going to be any baseball tickets for sale because no one's buying anything. There aren't going to be any baseball tickets for sale. That's the deal with law of demand. The quantity of a good demanded relates inversely to its price. Okay. So, with that being said, as the price goes down for an item, the demand is higher. More people are buying Honda Civic cars than they are buying Lamborghinis, right? Because at a lower price, the demand is higher. When you go to a car lot, you don't see a bunch of Lamborghinis. You only see, a couple expensive cars. Whereas you see, Fords, Honda, Toyotas, right? Because more people can afford them. So there's a higher demand for those kinds of cars. With that being said, maybe you usually buy pizzas on Friday, but maybe the taco joint next door is having a sale. That's a substitution effect, right? Okay. People are more willing to buy tacos if its price falls. Okay. We remember utility as happiness, right, girls, as a way to reach happiness. So, like, after your first slice of pizza, it's great. You love it. Next slice of pizza, still really good, not as great. Third slice of pizza, you're full. You did not get much utility from that third slice of pizza. This is the law of diminishing marginal utility. Okay. So as we talk more and more about, demand, like quantity demand and things like that, we had already reviewed that. We're going to be looking at supply, right? Supply and demand. That's what econ's all about. We're going to be looking at, supply, the law of supply, the supply curve, and the elasticity of supply, all things that we looked at with demand. The role of profit, supply, a more willingness to supply, more able to supply, we're basically looking at the same concepts of demand, but when we're looking at demand, we look at it from a consumer's perspective. Supply, you're looking at it from the producer's perspective, right? You're looking at it from the market's perspective, in that sense, right? So we're kind of going to shift gears. Like, you're not the person buying pizza anymore. You're the person who owns the pizza shop. All right. So we know that profit is, the money that you make as a result of, we know that profit is the money that you make as a result of, selling a product. So basically it's like it's what you make after your expenses. Obviously supply is, the quantities of a good that a shop or a business or a producer is willing and able to sell at various prices, right? How much pizza can I sell during this time period? At what price can I sell it? Supply indicates how much of a good producers are willing to supply and how much they are able to supply. There's a difference between supply and quantity supplied. And there's also a difference between individual supply and market supply. So with profit equals total revenue minus the total cost. You have a lemonade stand. Costs you $10 to get all the products for the lemonade stand, right? Take for all the ingredients, including cups. You make $40 off your lemonade stand. $40 minus the $10 cost, you made a $30 profit. That's what profit is. Total revenue is the total sales in dollars. Okay? Total sale in dollars. And this is received from the consumers who are buying during a certain period. The total cost includes the cost of all resources, right? Your lemons, your water, your cup, your sugars, that you use to make the lemonade. Over time, if you're, only breaking even with the amount of lemonade you're selling, okay, that's going to be a problem. You have to make sure that your total revenue covers your cost. That's going to help you survive. But to be successful, your total revenue must exceed your total cost time after time again. All right, here's some definitions, right? Supply indicates how much of a good producers are willing and able to offer for sale per period at each possible price. All other things are constant. The law of supply says that the quantity supplied is usually directly related to its price. Other things constant. The supply curve is a curve or line that shows the quantities of a particular good, like pizza or tacos, that are supplied at prices during a given time period, other things constant. Okay? Here's the price of pizza. If a pizza costs $15, right? we can supply 28 pizzas. Huh. This seems to be different from the demand schedule. Why is that? That's because when you're looking at it from a consumer perspective, you'll buy more of something if it's cheaper. From a producer's perspective, when you're making a profit, right? You're going to sell more of your expensive goods. That's why when you walk into a shop, they'll say, "Oh, you know what? Why don't you come look at you know, this laptop?" And you're like, "You know what? I just want a simple laptop that helps me do my schoolwork during quarantine. I don't need anything fancy." And they say, "No, no, no, come here. Let me show you the state of the art new laptop, all the all the fixes on it. Let me try," and they try to upsell you. And they try to upsell you because they can supply more of these expensive goods, right, at a higher price and make a larger profit. When in reality, as a consumer, you're probably looking for the cheapest thing you can get. That's why with supply, right? If a pizza costs $15 per pie, the producer is willing to make more of those pizzas, right? They're willing to make 28 million pizzas. But if they're only getting $3 for a pie, they're not going to sell as much because they're not interested. They're not getting a higher profit. Okay? This is the chart for the supply curve. It is an upward direct increase, okay? Going up. As the price of pizza increases, the supply increases. Producers are more willing to supply a more expensive product. As the price increases, a producer becomes more willing to supply the good. Price acts as a signal to existing and potential suppliers about the rewards for producing various goods. Higher price makes production more profitable, and it attracts resources from lower valued uses. Higher prices also increase the producer's ability to supply the good. The marginal cost of production increases as output increases. Okay? A higher price makes producers more able to increase a quantity supplied. Now, here's where it gets a little tricky, right? So, supply versus quantity supplied. Supply is the entire relation between the price and the quantity supplied as reflected by the supply schedule or supply curve that we saw earlier. Quantity supplied talks about a particular amount offered for sale at a particular price as reflected by a point on a supply curve. Okay? Individual supply and market supply. So individual supply is the supply of an individual producer. Think of this as a pizza shop owner, whereas market supply talks about all of the pizza shop owners, right? Every single one of them, every single food industry employer. Okay, so let's look at summing individual supply curves to find the market supply curve. We're looking at 3 different pizza places to find out the overall supply for the market of pizza. These guys, all right, for $9 a pie, they're doing 400 pizzas a week. When they sell them for $12 a pie, they sell 500, right? Over here, we see the same kind of trend, right, with the prices, right? So the market supply curve is the horizontal sum of each individual supply curve. Okay? So looking at that, okay, you just add them up. Okay? Then we look at elasticity of the supply curve. So elasticity measures how responsive producers are to a price change. This is how we measure it, right? The percentage change in the quantity supplied over the percentage change in price, all right? Supply is elastic if the elasticity exceeds 1. It is unit elastic if it breaks even, and it's inelastic if it's less than 1. When we looked at determinants of demand, so we're going to look at determinants of supply as well. One important determinant of supply elasticity is the length of the adjustment period under consideration. What that basically means, girls, is this time period in a week, right? Per week. That's what we look at. The elasticity of supply is typically greater the longer the period of adjustment, right? The longer over time, we're going to look at how responsive it is, right? So, because if the price of pizzas goes up by $10 and now you're paying $20 a pie, over time, you're going to see less and less and less people buy that really expensive pizza. Okay? That's from the consumer perspective. All right. And so if you look at that, okay, in the supply perspective, okay, you're going to see that it becomes more elastic over time. So check that out. Okay. We see gradually more and more gallons a day. Let's see. I'm going to end that for today. I'm going to give you an assignment and you can just work on that assignment and submit that to me. But I feel like that's a lot for today. Just as like to reintroduce you guys. And I think we left off at 5.2, which is great. So don't get overwhelmed. Okay, we're going to work through it together. I do want to show you guys something else really quick. Where is it? Okay. All right. We're going to check out this little graphic. Law of demand. Why does the newest iPad model cost almost $700, but when 6 months goes by, it only costs $400? The price of an iPad is determined how many are made available by the company, as well as the amount demanded for the product by consumers. The producer is supply, the buyer is the consumer, which is demand. This combination of supply and demand determines the price of all goods and services. The process for determining the price of a good starts with the consumer's demand for a good. Demand is simply the amount of a good or service that consumers are willing to buy. The law of demand says that consumers are willing to buy more of something when the price goes down. That's true for all of us, right? For instance, more people are willing to buy an iPad when the price for an iPad drops. When goods become cheaper, people see it as a deal and they want or demand more. The more the price drops, the bigger the demand for the good. The opposite is true when something goes up. People see it as expensive and people aren't more likely, or they are less likely to buy a product when it is expensive. Okay? So these are the questions that I want you guys to answer. Okay? If you want to just pause the video and then answer them in a Word doc and submit them. Okay? I want you to do that. You can pause whatever. So that's 5 questions. You can do bullet points, whatever. Just make sure your name is on it. Make sure it's in MLA format. Okay. Interestingly, the law of demand can be shown with a chart and a graph. Below is a demand schedule chart for iPads, which shows what demand for the good would be at a certain price. If it's $1,000, only 5 people will buy it. If it's $800, 10 people will buy it. And then you see as the price goes down, the demand goes up. Okay. If you look at the demand schedule, you can see that as the price of iPads decreases, demand increases. So that's why we see the graph going on a downward slope. Okay. The demand curve is on a downward slope because as the price goes down, more people will buy it. Okay. All right. So if the price of a good goes up, then the demand will decrease. The more expensive an item becomes, the less people want it. If the price of a good goes down, more people will want it, so it'll be in higher demand. Don't worry about those questions. It's fine. This is just a review again for demand. We've learned that the price of a good will affect the demand for it. However, besides price, there are other things that affect, right? These are determinants, right? Changes in income, the taste of consumers, and the population. Okay. Let's look at, so complementary goods, right? Complementary goods are goods that are used together. Like peanut butter is often bought with jelly, ink cartridges and printers, If the demand for ink goes up, then the demand for printers will also go up. Same thing with jelly, right? Let's see. For example, like people getting puppies during quarantine. If the demand for dog cages goes up, the demand for dog food will go up too because they are related to one another. Substitute goods, right? So this is a good that takes place of another good. People who drink like coffees can substitute it for tea. People who drink 7-Up can substitute it with Sprite. If the price of coffee goes up, people will switch to tea to save money. That's pretty much how it works. Okay. And this shows us how the demand curve shifts to the right or to the left, depending on the demand for iPad curves, influenced by any of those determinants. So the factors that can shift the demand curve. Okay, so a change in the demand will cause the curve to shift to the right or to the left. If it shifts to the left, okay, it would be a decrease in demand. Okay, if it shifts to the right, then it's going to be an increase in demand. And when we do that, we're looking at the price related to the amount demanded. Okay, let's see. That's fine for now. I want you to complete these questions right here, so you can pause the video and complete these as well, and then you will be finished your work for today as we did a review of demand. Please submit them to me on Edmodo. You will have to obviously have listened to this video in order to get this done. Okay. If you need any additional help, let me know. That was just a review. We're going to get back into things next week. You should expect a quiz on this review, on Edmodo, probably due on Wednesday of next week. We will talk about that. Please email me with any concerns, girls. It might be confusing returning to supply and demand, but we really need to get these concepts down. So let me know if you have any questions. Shoot me an email and I'll be happy to answer you and help you through whatever.